The Barlow lens. What are they for? How do you use one? And do you actually need one? Those questions and more answered coming right up. Hello, welcome to my channel, Small Optics. My name is Jason. Now, if there's one accessory I would always recommend somebody to buy, probably even before upgrading their eyepiece, it would be one of these things, a Barlow lens. Now, I class these as like the Swiss Army knife of the astronomy tools because these things are so versatile. So, first of all, let's have a quick look at exactly what a Barlow lens is. And basically, it consists of a tube which is sized to take an eyepiece like this. So an eyepiece would go into there like that. And on the other end here, so it's just an empty tube like this, okay? And you'll see there's a lens on the other end. I don't know if the camera's picking that up. It's like a negative lens, I suppose. And these are usually made up of 1, 2, or sometimes even 4 elements in there. Okay, so that's basically what a Barlow lens is. Now, if you were to look up what a Barlow does on the internet, you usually get a kind of a very vague or lazy way, I suppose, explanation of what a Barlow actually does. And in most cases, it will say it, well, it all depends on what times this is or how powerful it is. Well, this is in this case, it's a 2 times Barlow. And in most cases it'll say, well, it'll make this twice as powerful, basically. And that's not strictly true. What actually happens is it doubles the focal length. Okay, with this being a 2 times Barlow, it will double the focal length of any given telescope. So if I were to put it in this small refractor here, which is a 400, okay, focal length, put a Barlow in it, it will make it into an 800 focal length. With this one here, this reflector, 900, it'll turn it into an 1800. Okay, so why would you want to do that? Well, it's all down to power, and the longer the focal length, basically, the more powerful each eyepiece will be. For instance, this is a 23mm eyepiece. Now, if I put this eyepiece in this telescope, okay, and then take this eyepiece out, the exact same eyepiece, put it over into this telescope, it would magnify more, this eyepiece would magnify more in this telescope than it would in this one. Not because this is a more powerful telescope than this one, okay, it's simply got a longer focal length. So focal length is what gives us our power, basically. Okay, so when we introduce a Barlow lens, this is where they start coming into their play straight away. For instance, if you've got a short focal length telescope like this, which isn't going to give you much power, but straight away, and that's simply down to its focal length, again, with it only being a 400 focal length. Introduce one of these, it's now twice as long, okay? So that in actual fact the telescope's going to be actually twice as long, giving it a longer focal length, meaning that this eyepiece or any eyepiece I use with it will be magnified twice as well, twice as powerful. Okay, but again, remember, it's not the eyepiece that's magically turning say a 10mm into a 5mm eyepiece. It's just simply increasing the focal length. Now, of course, apart from the advantage of it increasing your focal length, what you're also doing in actual fact is doubling your eyepiece collection. Okay, so if you think about it, if you say you've got a low powered eyepiece, a medium and a high powered, start introducing the Barlow, well, you've got a completely another set, a more powerful set of eyepieces, if you like. The other great thing about Barlows is if you've got a nice eyepiece that's got a nice eye relief, that means how far your eye's away from it, and it's just it's probably your favourite eyepiece. Well, all that comfort will be maintained when you introduce the Barlow lens. Okay, as soon as you put that in, you've got you've introduced. All you've done, remember, is alter the focal length of the telescope. Nothing to do with the eyepiece, really. So now you've got all that comfort on your favourite eyepiece. The other great thing, now, well, I'll talk about different types of Barlows first as well. Now, as you can see with this one, this is just well, it's a little bit more than a standard Barlow, and I'll explain why in a minute. But usually, like I say, they're just a tube with this lens element in, and that's basically it. But what you can find, and this is the type of Barlow I would recommend, is one with the lens element that is removable. Okay, and you'll find that some of them you can actually take this out, and don't worry, the lens is not going to fall out. It's all still trapped in there. So as you can see, you're just left with this empty tube now. Now the great thing with these type of Barlows is, I use this method on slightly higher powered eyepieces, okay, and what you can actually do is screw this directly now onto the filter thread of the eyepiece, and what this has done is just reduced the power of the Barlow, if you like, and kind of turned it into a 1.5 Barlow. And like I say, this is great for just if you want to, if you're using, say, a 6mm or a 10mm eyepiece, and it's the conditions allow it, you can just give that eyepiece just that little bit more oomph, you know what I mean, a bit more power by doing it this way instead of actually, you know, doing it in the Barlow lens in the full way. The other thing why you should, now astrophotography is becoming very popular at the minute. And Barlows, if I don't know hardly any people that are into astrophotography don't have one or two of these kicking around. So if you're actually thinking about starting any kind of astrophotography, strongly advise getting one of these. Now some Barlows, this is doesn't have the cell in at the minute, but if you look closely at this one, you will see that it's actually got a thread around the top. Now what's great about this is actually I think, is it T-thread they call them? T-thread? See, this is how much I'm into astrophotography. I'm sure it's T-thread. And what this does is this will actually act like a nose piece. You can just screw this directly onto your cameras, okay, and do it that way. Now if it obviously had a lens cell in it, you've just got the Barlow straight away and you've got your camera attached, and this can then go straight into your telescope, okay. If I take this out like that, alright, so you imagine you've got your camera attached to that with obviously a Barlow lens. This one hasn't, but even if it hasn't, that's another great thing with these type of Barlows with removable cells, especially when they're combined like this, where I've actually got this T-thread on the top as well. You can use them as an extension piece, okay, by either an extension piece for a camera. The reason you'd want to do that, because what you might find when you do start doing any kind of astrophotography is getting focus, having enough focus travel, okay. And sometimes, though, if you can imagine that this is where your eyepiece would be, okay, you've now introduced something like this. Sorry, you would introduce it that way, sorry, on your tube. I'll demonstrate something with that actually now, a good use for refractor users and Barlow lenses. So yes, like I was saying, what you would do is you would put the Barlow in here at the end and then place your diagonal, okay, and this is going to get all your eyepiece direct in this way, okay, and this is going to give you a lot more focal travel. So this is just a great way. You can use that obviously with or without the lens in, and that's a good tip for refractor users. I prefer, if I'm going to be using a Barlow with a diagonal, okay, it can sometimes get a little bit uncomfortable when you've got something like this, and then you've got your long, your low-powered eyepiece like that, and you've got this kind of affair going on, and sometimes in certain positions that can be a little bit cumbersome. So if you do it the other method, like I've just showed you with the Barlow lens, what you can do is put it before the diagonal. Okay, so the Barlow can go into there, okay, and then place the diagonal into there, and as you can see, you've got a much more neater setup, okay? And then just this way you can still swap the eyepieces out and still get the effect of the Barlow. Another way you can do it, okay, and also that's going to give you, obviously, alter the focal travel. Another way you can do it, sometimes, not all diagonals, but some do have a filter thread on here, okay, and of course you can take this off, like we've done before, and then screw that lens cell directly onto your diagonal, okay, place that back, and you're still going to get the Barlow effect again that way. So there's just one or two ideas. Now, unfortunately, reflector users, we just have to put up with sometimes a big thing sticking out of his eyepiece. So, but that's just a few ways of actually using the Barlow for you to try around and play around with, experiment, whatever. Now, going back to the removable cell, of course, you can also attach this directly to the nose cone of like a camera adapter. Just remove the cell from here and just screw that directly into the nose cone, and you've already obviously got your T-thread at the end of that. I keep saying T-thread. I keep feeling that there's another word for that, but I'm sure you photographers know what I mean. So as you can see, the Barlow lens is the Swiss Army knife of astronomy tools. Now, just a little bit of word of advice when actually purchasing a Barlow. Now, you may have had a Barlow lens provided with your telescope, okay, and these are okay, but they're a bit like your eyepieces with your telescope. They're to get you going, really. And it's always a good idea to upgrade, especially when it comes to Barlow lenses. Now, you don't have to spend an absolute fortune on anything really astronomical. Always spend within your budget, obviously. But one thing to avoid is these unbranded Barlow lenses that are quite popular on Wish and Amazon and places like that. You know the type I mean, AliExpress. Always look for something with a brand on, okay? Now, the brands to look out for are things like Celestron, Skywatcher, Mead, you know, there's Explore Scientific. There's so many names out there. I'll flash a few names on the screen of, you know, branded names, just in case you're not familiar, if you don't know many. Excuse me. But just look for that branded name. That you know you're going to get some kind of quality. Another thing I'd advise is always go to telescope suppliers, actual places that sell just telescopes and binoculars and photographic equipment. Them kind of shops or stores or whatever. So do yourselves a favour and try and avoid that bargain Barlow lens that you might have seen on the internet, and treat yourself to something a little bit better. Now, I just want to quickly talk about high-powered Barlows. Now, as we've mentioned, this is a 2x Barlow, but you may have seen them 3 times or maybe even 5 times. Now, what these are actually designed for, they're not really designed or to be used with eyepieces, really. I mean, not saying that you can't use them with eyepieces, but usually they're for low or should I say small chipped cameras, such as this one here. Okay, now this is an Astro camera, but it's only a cheap app. It's a budget Astro camera. But if you're familiar with a regular to my channel, you know I've done a few videos on this camera. But like I say, it's only a budget camera, so it does have quite a small chip in there, and like such as a 3x Barlow and a 5x Barlow will work great with such as this, okay? Because what that's going to do, it's really going to boost the image side up, giving you know, plenty for the small chip to have a go at, basically, instead of it being such a tiny little image it's going to be projecting. So yeah, that's for the 3 and 5x Barlow. Like I say, they're generally used or designed or aimed at astrophotography, okay? Don't go falling into the trap of thinking that buying a 5x Barlow and a very powerful eyepiece like a 5mm eyepiece is going to give you stunning views of the planets and the moons. it won't. Okay, it's a common mistake a lot of beginners make. They think it's all about power, and trust me, that'll lead to what's called overpowering your telescope, basically, and you're just going to get a big fuzzy blob that you'll not be able to get into focus. Okay, so leave the 3 and 5 times for astrophotography, stick with the 2 times Barlow for visual. A quick mention as well, these are the size of these are 1.25 inch. Just in case you're wondering, Barlows do come in 2-inch furniture as well. Again, be very wary of cheap 2-inch Barlows, because there's a lot of glass in there, and like I say, with cheap Barlows you're just going to get inferior optics, and inferior optics means inferior views, basically. Okay, so but do bear in mind, for 2-inch Barlows you are going to be paying that bit more, because like I say, there's a lot more glass in a 2-inch Barlow than there is a 1.25 inch. Well, that's about as much as I can say about the humble Barlow lens. So that about wraps it up for another video. So thank you so much for watching. If you've watched this far, I hope you've got something out of the video. If you haven't subscribed, maybe think about subscribing. I do regular uploads for the new astronomer. In the meantime, take good care of yourselves, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.